time for Southern Fried Baseball, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Jake McKeever as he talks everything SEC baseball and more.
Welcome in, College Baseball Central fans. Episode 2, and we're already on our second name. I think this one's going to be sticking. Southern Fried Baseball with myself, Jake McKeever. Week 2 of our SEC deep dives brings us to my personal preseason number 1 and SEC favorite, the Arkansas Razorbacks. There's a lot to like about this team. There's a ton of talent, ton of new guys. Let's go ahead and jump into it as we start on the slides like we always do. Obviously, we're doing tournament rankings. Baum-Walker is going to be our new number 1 as it's going to unseat Sewell Thomas Stadium. They've done a few tasteful upgrades in the last few years that make it one of the best in the SEC. I think that it's going to stay at this top spot for a little bit longer. And I think that if from a fan perspective, I'd probably put Arkansas at number 1, as it seems like these fans love to pack this place. There's a ton of great memories that get made here, and it is one of the best stadiums in the SEC. Moving on to uniforms, obviously I told you I wasn't a very big fan of Alabama's last week. Arkansas is going to be the new number 1. They have some of my favorite uniform takes and then some that I really, really don't like. They were one of the few teams that switched to that new Nike template that everybody in the major leagues kind of hated. I was really not a fan of the upgrades that they did to their pinstripes, their road grays, or their whites, as the Arkansas text was super, super small. But I think their cream is probably my favorite look of any team in college baseball, along with their red top with the Arkansas followed by the Razorbacks. And then the Arkansas A hat, I think, puts this in an S tier. Overall, I think Arkansas is going to be quote-unquote a B tier. If they leaned into that cream and that A a little bit more, I think I would put them into that kind of S tier. But Arkansas is going to be our new number 1 ahead of Alabama. Here we are as the schedule is kind of cut off a little bit. We do have all of Arkansas's entire schedule. This is going to be their weekend series. They open up with Washington State at home. Then they head to Arlington to face Kansas State, TCU, and Michigan in Arlington. Those are the 2 teams that have eliminated TCU the last few weeks or the last few years. So just kind of get a little bit of revenge there. It seems like TCU has kind of owned Arkansas's last time that they were in Arlington. They really kind of teed off. I don't think Michigan will give them that much of a trouble, but again, Kansas State and TCU with a little bit of revenge. Then they have Charlotte and Portland before they open up SEC play. They go to Ole Miss, home against a very, very pesky South Carolina team, on the road against Vandy, home against Missouri, at Georgia, and then this down the stretch is kind of where it really, really turns up for the Hogs. They play A&M at home, Florida on the road. Texas will come to Baum-Walker, which I'm sure will be one of the most highly coveted series for Hog fans, as they kind of love to hate Texas. I know that Steve Sarkisian said that it seemed like Arkansas hates Texas more than they're actually Arkansas fans. I'm really not so sure that that's the case, but again, I think this is going to be a very, very competitive series here in the SEC. Finally, they'll go to the box before facing the defending national champions, Tennessee, at home down that stretch. If you remember last year, they went on the road to Texas A&M and they won that Saturday game as they only needed to do 1 of 3, and then DVH really didn't care about the other one. It could be the case there with that Tennessee one, as I know that that'll be a series to kind of watch. But again, going forward, I think that those are all some of the toughest teams. Overall, I think that this is going to be one where Ole Miss will need to stack up a ton of wins at the beginning. They do get Ole Miss and Missouri, which again are some of the bottom feeders in the SEC, and they're really kind of a class below everybody. They do miss a few teams that I think that they're going to be excited that they missed. They do miss a very, very tough OU team. And again, I think it's going to be a very, very winnable slate for the Hogs. And I think overall that this is one with the strength of schedule where they'll be hosting a regional. This is who Arkansas is replacing, and it is a ton of talent. Obviously, you know how we do it. This is their lineup from their last game. They are going to be replacing Peyton Stovall at second base, who was probably one of the better players in Arkansas history. Hudson White, the transfer from Texas Tech, he's gone as well. Jared Sproglot, who really kind of came into his own at third base, he's gone. Ben McLaughlin's going to be gone too as well. Aloy and Diggs are going to be back, but that spark plug Peyton Holt's going to be gone. Ryder Helfrich will be back as he'll be kind of the only catcher, as I know it was a catcher by committee at times with him and Hudson White. And then obviously Ty Wilmsmeyer in center field is going to be gone as well. So there's a ton of stuff that they are replacing. And again, they also are replacing their entire weekend rotation, as Hagen Smith was drafted super, super high. Mason Molina was drafted as well, and then Brady Tigert moved on as well. Jake Faraday is another one that they're going to be replacing. Hudson Polk was a guy that was kind of in the mix at that catching room by committee. He's gone. And then Jason Jones, who kind of played a few times, really didn't have a chance to kind of be that outfielder as he struggled at times. He has moved on to Oklahoma State as a transfer. Obviously, that's a ton of names, and you would think that this would be something that would be a Hogs Achilles heel. But with the new modern college baseball and the NIL, Arkansas was able to bring in 30 new guys. Obviously, the pitching, Arkansas, I think, is going to be ahead of Alabama in that regard. And I think that they're honestly probably the best pitching staff in the SEC. Obviously, I'm going to have to do a little bit of deep dive research on some of the other ones. But again, it's going to be Gabe Gackle at the top of that rotation. He's a guy who's 98 and really, really pounds the zone. Has a great, tremendous sweeping slider as well. He's a projected 2026 top 10 pick. I've seen him go as high as 5. I've seen him go as high as 1. He's going to be a guy that really is kind of the class of the SEC. He was their closer last year. We'll talk about that here in a second, but I think he's going to be a guy that they really, really lean on, and it's going to be a guy that pitches a ton of meaningful innings. And a lot of times they're going to be the favorite to win that Friday night with Gabe Gackle in that Friday role. Saturday is the lefty transfer from Eastern Carolina, Zach Root. There was a ton of interest in the portal from him after he was a tremendous, tremendous number 2 for a talented ECU staff. There was interest from Texas, LSU, Tennessee, I think, called on him. The Hogs were able to land Zach Root. I see him as kind of being the Saturday guy again, with Gackle being the Friday. Obviously, I think it could be. The thing about Root is he's kind of a gimmicky lefty, has a big, strong, sweeping one, super, super weird motion. He's got 92 with a 78-mile-an-hour curve. I think that there's a lot to like with these 1-2. And then I know I'm going to butcher the name, Landon Beetleskys, coming over from Ohio State. He was the Ohio State Friday guy. He's looked tremendous in some of the fall stuff that I've seen. He's up to 97, really kind of lives in that 97 to 94, has just a wicked, wicked, wicked slider on that aspect. I think that these 3 guys are going to win them a ton of games in the SEC. The midweek guy is we have Hunter Dietz slotting in there. He is recovering from an injury. He was their midweek guy and really kind of dominated and pitched tremendous in that role. He's someone that I kind of see living in there again. Gage Wood will provide bullpen depth from them. He's kind of a change of pace guy. He's an upper 80s kind of guy. He's up to 94. He's going to be a guy that really kind of eats innings first out of that bullpen. And then Will McIntyre is going to be that change of pace bullpen guy, as he's going to be kind of in that low 90s and really kind of spin off some breaking balls. But the back end of the bullpen, I think, is where Arkansas really kind of sets themselves apart. They're going to have Christian Fouch in that setup man role. And then Carson Wiggins is going to be in that quote-unquote Gabe Gackle role. I think he'll kind of be that closer down the stretch, and then they'll move him into a starter in the future. He has just tremendous, tremendous stuff. All the stuff that I've read out of the fall camp from him has just been off the charts. He seems like he's going to be the future of Arkansas baseball. I think he's touched 99. I talked to an Oklahoma State coach, too, who said that, this really is one of the best staffs that they'll probably face all year. It's kind of ironic that they're facing it in a fall workout. And you can tell by the stats that they put up against Oklahoma State. I mean, they struck out a ton in that first game when Arkansas was throwing a lot of their dudes. I think that this is probably a staff. This feels weird to say because Hagen Smith went top 5. Molina was a tremendous, tremendous arm for them. And Brady Tigert, again, had the lowest ERA for that team in April as the quote-unquote change of pace guy. I think that this might be a deeper, deeper staff. And we haven't even talked about Cole Gidler, who's a freshman that probably isn't going to pitch any meaningful innings. He was one that was a top prospect coming in. Kind of interested to see how he uses him in that role. I think there's going to be a ton of bullpen depth that you always kind of see in the SEC. And then Aiden Jimenez is coming over from Oregon State. He was supposed to be one of their Friday night weekend starter type of guys. He's obviously recovering from an injury. I think they'll expect him right around when SEC play rolls around. Again, I think he's going to be a tremendous, tremendous arm if he can kind of return to form. And from what I've seen out of the throws and his bullpen sessions, it seems like everything's going smoothly. And the track for him is to pitch in March. So ultimately, I think that this Arkansas staff, it seems crazy to say, is deeper and a better staff than the 2023 Arkansas. They're obviously going to be best in the SEC. I think that they're going to be chasing that 2024 Arkansas team when they move into 2025. And I would probably put this one a little bit ahead of them. Moving on, and I do apologize for the graphic a little bit. I was trying something a little bit new with the projected lineup, and it obviously kind of formatted a little bit weird. So I don't think that this one will be one that will be here to stay. Behind the plate, we're going to have Ryder Helfrich. Like I said, he started 31 games for the Hogs. The average was 179, so he really kind of took his freshman lumps. But up at the Cape, he really, really dominated, and the power has kind of continued through the fall workouts. He led the Cape Cod in home runs with, I believe it was 11. And again, 11 in about a 6-week span is just going to be tremendous. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to sit in that 3-hole for them, and he's going to be a tremendous, tremendous one. I'm going to skip first base and second base just because there is a little bit of a battle going on there between Nolan Souza and Camden Cozell, the Vandy transfer. Brett Ireland at third base, I think, is going to be a tremendous, tremendous talent. 2-time JUCO All-American, an Australian. Big, big bat for him. I think he's going to be kind of in that corner spot at third base. I know a few of the guys that were at the scrimmage really raved about his professional approach. Some of the videos I've seen, he's got a ton of pop and a really, really late whip. His wrists are super, super strong. He's going to be a guy that I think could hit 5-hole for him, and it's just going to be a tremendous, tremendous bat. Shortstop is going to be the first of the Aloys. Obviously, this one's Waihiwa Aloy. He hit 270 for the Hogs last year, led the team in home runs at 1458. He's a strong, strong guy. He's a guy that when you watch the Hogs warm up, he really kind of jumps out at you and is a smooth third shortstop. For as big and strong as he is, he really does kind of field that position like somebody who really is kind of married into that position. I think that he could kind of project as a draft guy that stays at shortstop. They might move him to a corner infield spot at the major league level just because he is such a strong bat and he has such a strong arm. But again, I think he's one of the best fielders in the SEC. And I know last week I said LeBron was going to be in that all-SEC conversation. I think Aloy is going to be the guy that he's going to have to beat out if he wants to be there. I think he has to be your favorite for all-SEC shortstop. Moving on into the outfield, Logan Maxwell, the senior, is coming over from TCU. He started 46 games for them, hitting 325. It was really great for the TCU Horned Frogs down the stretch as they tried to make that late push. He's obviously with Arkansas. So now this is the second year in a row where they have had true talent at Texas Big 12 schools move a little bit east into Arkansas, and really kind of a credit to the staff that Dave Van Horn has, as Logan Maxwell will be the left fielder. Charles Devlin, the center fielder, is coming over for Florida Gulf Coast. He was a guy that you thought might slide into that second base spot. It seems like that one's going to be a little bit too crowded, and he's going to find a great home in center field. D1 Baseball had him as one of the top 50 transfer bats coming over. He hit 325 with 12 doubles, 3 hits, 10 stolen bases, spark plug, top of the order kind of guy. I expect him to bat leadoff for this Hogs team in that one. And then Kendall Diggs, the old man coming over, back for his senior year. Battled through an injury last year. Really didn't have the season that he wanted as he hit down in the 220s. Again, he had that injury. He's going to be healthy. He hasn't really taken a bunch of swings in the fall, but he's somebody that I really expect to kind of be in that right field role. There's a few other guys that are kind of in the mix for it, but I expect, the old man Kendall Diggs to kind of be there. And then Koho Aloy coming over from BYU. He's going to be another guy that I expect to kind of slot into that DH role. Like, he's not as big and as muscular as his brother, but I think that he plays the game in an exciting way. I think that the Hogs could use him as a DH. Maybe him and Diggs kind of swap out in that aspect. But again, now moving on to kind of the two competitions, we have Camden Cozell coming over from Vanderbilt. First team All-American as a freshman for the Vandy Commodores. Was at the All-College Classic team when I got to see him and really pounded the ball. Had a very mature approach. He returns a little bit closer to home as he is from Omaha. He is who I project to kind of be that second baseman. And with that, I think Nolan Souza will be the first baseman, with Camden Cozell being the second. Obviously, Souza was a guy that played second last year for the Hogs. I think that him being at first base will give them a little bit of versatility there. I think that there's a few other guys that they might try and slot in if he does win that second base job over Camden Cozell, but I expect Camden Cozell to kind of get that. There's a few other guys in the mix, like I said. Justin Thomas, Rocco Pepe, and Carson Bowles are a few guys in the outfield that I think could push for playing time. Reese Robinette is another guy in the infield that could usually be in that second base. And then Tyler Holland's another one that could really kind of push for playing time. But overall, I think that this is a lineup that's a little bit deeper than the one that they had last year. I think the fielding kind of takes a little bit of a step back, but the hitting, I think, is just going to be off the charts. And Arkansas is going to need these guys to produce if they want to get back to Omaha. As again, last year they didn't go to Omaha. The year before they didn't go to Omaha. They didn't even make it out of their own regionals. I think that this is a talented Hogs team. And again, there's a lot to like about them going forward. Moving on into our SEC teams ranked. Again, I think that this is going to be another one where we'll see this up there for a while. Arkansas is our new number one in SEC teams ranked. Alabama slides behind them at number 2. Obviously, the balance of the pitching staff and the depth that it has, coupled with the lineup, I think Arkansas would overwhelm an Alabama team. And Arkansas really, really is going to be our new number one. And I think that they're going to sit there for a while, if I'm being honest with you. Here is kind of the bell curve that I have for the Hogs. Obviously, in that far right is national champions. It's the one thing that's eluded DVH in his illustrious career, as he is second all-time in wins at Arkansas in his 22nd season. They've been really, really close. I think that this is the team that could probably get there and host that trophy. Obviously, it takes a little bit of luck to win a national championship, but if you're going to make me pick one of those 7 or 8 teams that I think could win the national championship, Arkansas has to be in that conversation. Their bell curve, their average, where I think that they're probably going to end up, is the Omahogs. They've been away from Omaha the last 2 years. TCU eliminated them in 23. Last year, it was Kansas State. I think that the Hogs kind of returned to form here. The pitching staff, I don't know how you're going to beat this team in a weekend series. I don't know how you're going to beat them in a 4th game as their 4th guy. Last year had a 2 ERA. I think that there's a ton of stuff when you look at this Arkansas team that they do really, really well. Then obviously their kind of worst case scenario. The good news is they're out of purple teams that they haven't seen in the Big 12, as they don't have any, as none of the new ones have purple, but a purple Big 12 team bounces them in a regional. The odds of them getting paired up with Oklahoma State, Arizona, Texas Tech, TCU, I think are going to be tremendously high. They'll get a little bit of revenge, but I think if you're going to, write in with pencil and predictions, a Big 12 team is going to go to that Fayetteville regional, and I think Arkansas kind of gets it done for them. That is our last slide, as I'll kind of move it and make myself a little bit bigger here. That's what we have for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Obviously, the rankings that we have are going to be aggregates, and our top 25s are going to be aggregates going forward. Me personally, I have the Hogs winning the SEC. They're the number one team in the SEC rank for me. The pitching is just tremendous. I was talking to Monty earlier, as he said I was kind of the lowest on Texas A&M, as the other 3 guys have A&M as that preseason number 1, and I'm the lone one that has Arkansas. I think the depth of the pitching staff is a lot greater than Texas A&M. They addressed a ton of their needs from a hitting standpoint. It really kind of does feel like an SEC all-star team with the amount of talent that they brought in with Camden Cozell. I'm really, really high on Aloy. He looked great up at the Cape. Ryder Helfrich's another guy that I'm really, really high on, as he had a tremendous Cape going forward. He's made a few tweaks to his swing that I think will pay dividends for them going forward. And again, obviously our rankings are not going to reflect this, but my personal ranking is the Arkansas Razorbacks are my preseason number 1. They're the Omaha favorite. They're the national championship favorite going forward. As we kind of pass that 20-minute mark, that's all we have time for here on Southern Fried Baseball. Hope everybody enjoyed it. I think we have Auburn next week, same time at 7. I'll go ahead and get a graphic out to kind of do that. But again, see everybody next week at 7. Thanks for tuning in.